okay, like it's cool and all, but are we done yet? Because I was just like, I gotta be done with this. For me, it was very like, meh. We were bebopping all over the place, and like the pacing just felt real weird. But the main character being so dumb that it irritated the shit out of me. Well, hello. Welcome back to my channel. Just Shauna here to talk about some friggin' books that I didn't necessarily have a good time with this year. And as per usual, I don't have a bunch of like 1 or even just 2-star ratings in the year. Usually, I don't know if usually, but if I have any that are even like in the 1-star range, it's usually maybe 1, which is the case this year. So most of these are ones that I wouldn't say are like the worst books I've ever read or anything like that. They're just books that just didn't work for me for a variety of reasons. There are, how many? There's 9, and I just left it with the lowest rated one is 1.5, and I went up through all of there's one 2.25, a few 2.5s, and then 2 2.75. And then that was it. And then we were gonna get into 3 stars. I didn't wanna pick one of the 3 stars that was like the lowest to make it an even 10. So we're just going with 9. The number 9 one on this list, I'm going from order of like liked the least up to least unliked. Whatever, you know what I'm saying? We're starting at the low end here. So number 9 is the 1.5 star rating I had for the year. And that is Good For You by Camille Pagan, I don't know. This was a random Audible that I got, and I would have DNF'd it if it was in physical form, I'm sure, because I would not have been able to get through it. There were thematic elements that I thought seemed to be handled with care, enough care that I wasn't like shocked by anything, but it's like stuff I don't have experience with. So I said in my review of it that like, I can see people who maybe had these experiences like childhood trauma via like an abusive parent and a neglectful parent, and then grief, and specifically in this case via death of a sibling. Not spoiler, that's in the synopsis. She's like dealing with that. And like I said, I think those were handled with care, and I could see people enjoying the book more if they have those experiences and they like resonate with it. Also, it's just contemporary romance, which is not typically my jam anyway. The main character though, oh my god, she was simply too much for me. She was incredibly aggravatingly childish, reactive, oblivious, obtuse, and just like ridiculously fucking immature. She was jumping to wild ass conclusions all the time. This dude that she was like the love interest, and they weren't like a thing at the time, and she like hated him immediately for no real reason. He was a little like not super warm and friendly to her with the first time she met him, and so she was like, he's an evil jackass. Like, and so she hated him for years based on this one thing. And then he's like leaving for hours a day, and she's like, I don't know where he's going. And then she just jumps to this conclusion that she doesn't think he has a job. And I'm like, yet he leaves for hours a day, and you don't put 2 and 2 together to think that maybe he does have a job, like that he's doing something with his time. And she's like, he's just a lazy bum that doesn't have a job. I'm like, girl, what are you talking about? She's so dumb. She fucking pissed me off. The only reason I finished it is because I remember I was doing my nails and like cleaning around the house, and doing my nails in particular, I was doing like my dip powder, which I don't have right now, but it takes a long time, and I just needed something to listen to, and I definitely sped it up to like 2.2 times speed or something, because I was just like, I gotta be done with this bitch. But I want something to listen to. Yeah, I did not have a good time with that at all. And then coming in at number 8, we have The Bones Beneath My Skin by TJ Klune with a 2.25 rating. Oh man, this one. It's definitely very apparent to me now. I've learned the lesson. House in the Cerulean Sea, I think, was the one-off for me with TJ Klune. I might someday still try that, like, the Green Creek or Queen Creek, I don't know, the Wolf Song, that series. I might, but I loved House in the Cerulean Sea. Didn't love the other one he put out after that was like unrelated. And so then I didn't try, like there was like something Lives of Puppets that I didn't even try. Then I tried his Extraordinaires duology. I read the first book and kind of liked it, but had some issues with the like propaganda that was in it. And then I read the second book, or I picked it up. I think I DNF'd it. And then I tried this one, and yeah, I finished it, but did not have a good time. And I said when I talked about it in the recent wrap-up that, like, not gonna lie, I heavily skimmed huge sections of this book. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. I am in the minority on this. There are so many fucking 5-star reviews of this book. But yeah, after about the 50% mark, there were several times where I was like heavily skimming. It had cute, heartwarming moments, but my God, it dragged on forever. And then there was just, I'll put in the cards like the wrap up where I talk about it, because there was just some crap that happened. And I was just like, what are we doing? And the part of the reason I was heavily skimming chunks of it is because he kept doing this thing where he would like interrupt action with characters having repetitive internal thoughts and like reflection on life and what it means to be family and friends and the human bonds we have, and like just going on and on about shit like that in their head, interrupting action for like pages and pages and pages. And I was just like, I don't need this. I don't need this. So yeah, didn't have a super fun time there. Now getting into the few 2.5s, coming in at number 7. This one was very disappointing. Dragon Rider by Taryn Matharu. I had a NetGalley e-arc of this. Sounded really cool. I mean, the title alone, Dragon Rider, and we have Dragon Riders. This was another case of the main character. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on with this one that I didn't love, but the main character being so fucking dumb that it irritated the shit out of me. Yeah, my note here is, I understand that he's pretty naive, but when he would have a plan laid out, he inevitably always did something different to fuck up the plan, and then would be like, ah, dang, that plan didn't work. Yeah, dude, because you didn't follow the fucking plan. And I just didn't get engaged with the characters. And then, yeah, the middle section of it slogged forever for me. I just lost all fucking steam I had with it at all. And it was just, yeah, not my cup of tea, inevitably. Another NetGalley e-arc that I had coming in at what, number 6 are we on now? Yeah, number 6 is Masquerade by O.O. Sangoyomi. I wanted to love this so much. Historical fiction, not fantasy. I thought it was initially, but it's not. But just historical fiction, mythology based. Initially, I was gonna DNF it. I got up to 58% and I decided I was gonna DNF it. And I wrote, for my like explanation, I wrote, main character is too dumb to live and also quite bland. Some very silly things in the plot that didn't make sense, and a friendship that I feel like we saw nothing of until we saw a memory of the friendship from one character. I just cannot any longer. I might take a break and pick it back up in a week or so. I'm not sure yet. 4 days later, I did pick it up again and I finished. I wanted my NetGalley ratio to not be hot garbage. I'm still working on getting it back up. So I was like, fuck, I'll finish it. And I ended up finishing it in a couple of hours, and I struggled with rating it because a huge portion of this book made me want to give it like 2 stars maximum. I was like, God, there was most of the first part of it just was like not doing it for me. But then the ending felt like a 3.75 ending. So that's kind of why I settled in like 2.5, because the majority of the book was like a 2 at best, but then the ending, so I'm like, okay, I'll give it like a 2.5. It didn't feel fair to give it like a 3, like that wouldn't feel like authentic to how I felt toward it, you know? But yeah, I just really did not care for the main character at all until the very, very end. Then she was like, oh shit, I maybe love her. She turned it around for me. And there was just a lot of telling rather than showing in the book. And it's a debut, so this is a case where I will pick up something else from this author, especially with like that ending there. I'm like, is this the direction your writing is going? Because sign me up for that, please. So I'll check out more from this author, but this debut, it just had too many issues for me to rate it higher. Oh God, then The Wolf and the Whale by Jordana Max Brodsky. This one, I debated putting this one below Masquerade because my reading experience with it was way more boring and it took longer because the book is way longer. However, like this one, the quality of the writing, I guess, like overall, I felt like was a little bit better, which makes sense. This is not a debut author. But this one, yeah, I was just bored. I was so bored. And it's like kind of historical, I guess, but it's just fantasy. And we have an Inuit inspired culture. And then we also have like Viking inspired culture coming in and them interacting. And yeah, I was terribly bored and wished I had DNF'd it, honestly. I can see why people like it if you like a more slow ass paced thing, but not for me. Number 4 for lowest rated is Never Die by Rob J. Hayes. I really wanted to love this one. I was really enjoying it up until like, 20, 40%, like in there somewhere, I started to lose steam with it. The initial introductions to the Whispering Blade and the Emerald Wind were cool. And the first handful of like action scenes did draw me in. I was enjoying it. But then it started to feel quite repetitive for me personally. And it just was very action heavy, which tends to not be my jam. Like it's just like action, 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 fight, fight, fight. I lose interest pretty quickly. It starts to just feel very repetitive. And I didn't love the ending very much either. So it just was something that I can see people enjoying it if you love really cool action fight scenes and stuff. And like a lot of it, there's a lot of people who like the book and I can see why. It just was not for me. That's all that one was. And then a book that I do still own, I have not unhauled because I'm waiting for the 3rd book to come out before I decide on the trilogy. Warrior of the Wind by Sui Davies Okungbawa, 2.5 stars. And yeah, the first book I gave 5 stars. So, and waited like 2 or 3 years for this one to come out. And it was just very underwhelming. Mostly it was just the pacing. It, like, you know, when you talk about like middle book syndrome, there's sometimes where I read middle books that I'm like, yeah, technically middle book syndrome, but like I still enjoyed it. I still had a fun time, but like maybe not my fave or whatever. Like the first Law trilogy, I think Before They Are Hanged is probably my least favorite. I gave all of those 5 stars though, but like it feels like the middle book, I guess, but like not in some big negative way. And that happens, I think, a fair amount for me where I'm like, middle book syndrome, but like still a fun time. This though was like the epitome of middle book syndrome for me. And it was very disappointing. Didn't hate it, obviously, but yeah, 2.5, which was a huge drop from 5 stars for the first book. I'm hoping that we can stick the landing enough that, you know, I don't hate it. Like, it's not something, there's sometimes too where I read a book in a series and I'm just like, I'll skip that one if I ever reread the series, because what the fuck. I wouldn't skip this one, but yeah, it was not what I was wanting. And then one that I actually just finished, it was the last thing that I finished in 2024. I haven't even talked about it in a recent wrap-up as of right now when I'm filming on January 1st. And it was a NetGalley e-arc that I gave 2.75 stars, and that was The Crimson Road by A.G. Slatter. I read Book of the Briar Dead last year, and I gave that Briar Book of the Dead, I meant, Jesus. I gave Briar Book of the Dead 4.25 stars. And these are companion novels, and there's a couple other ones that I haven't read that came out before Briar Book of the Dead. And I don't know if I'll read them. I gave that one 4.25, but this one I gave 2.75, which again, very disappointing. It felt like, I don't even know. It was, I think probably mostly because of the quest element of it. Like Briar the Book of the Dead, we were in one location. There's like a couple times where we like ventured out into like the forest or like the next town over, but like we were in this one place. And this one, Crimson Road, we were bebopping all over the place and like the pacing just felt real weird. It dragged on for a while and then the ending was pretty rushed, I felt. Also, I started noticing that it was doing the thing of ending chapters multiple times. Not like every chapter, but like more than like 4 times, I feel. Probably like 6 or 7 times. We ended chapters with the main character getting knocked out or passing out and like fading to black. As she closed her eyes, fell to the ground and saw someone looming over her. And then the next chapter is like, she woke up days later and like kept doing that over and over. And I was like, can we stop it? It just kept pulling me out of the story. So yeah, I just didn't have the most fun. And it's like vampire lore, but like It's like a reimagined kind of, they're called leeches in this world. So it's like a different version of vampires. And so I'm all for like making up your own lore if you're doing like vampires a different way in your world and you're even calling them something else. But like there's some familiarity in some of the lore, but then some of the lore just like didn't really make sense to me, where I was like, but what? But why though? I don't know. Just, yeah, not my fave. And then at the top of the least faves of the year, the other 2.75, The Dead Cattail Assassins by P. Jelly Clark. Another NetGalley e-arc that I had, and it came out in 2024. And it's a novella, and that we can pretty much chalk this one up to novellas just not typically being my jam for the most part. Sometimes I'm just like, Deshauna, why do we keep trying? But like then I'll read synopses that I'm like, oh, that sounds so fucking cool though. And there've been like a couple times with novellas that they're like faves of all time, you know? So I'm like, maybe it'll be another one. But yeah, I had a fun enough time with this one. I just did not really get invested in the characters in the slightest. I didn't really feel like I got to know the two main characters well enough either. And once again, it was kind of chalk it up to like, I like action, and like action movies I quite enjoy. But even movies, even action movies, like I wrote in here in my little thing, I said, I'm personally not the biggest fan of assassin after assassin after assassin after assassin coming after the main character, and they just keep fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. We got done with that fight, and we took a few steps, or we went a few blocks, and now there's another fight, and then end that fight, and then go to sleep and wake up the next day, and someone's trying to fight me again, and like it just feels like, oh my god. And I said it's like John Wick 4 vibes. I do enjoy really cool action, but it can absolutely get too repetitive where I'm like, okay, like it's cool and all, but are we done yet? Just how I felt watching John Wick 4. I liked it, but like, Jesus Christ, I'm exhausted. And that's kind of how I felt with this. So another case of just kind of not the thing for me. And there we have it. Those are the 9 lowest rated things from this year. Several of which are just things that weren't exactly to my taste. And now for the most disappointing. As with my most surprising in the other video, 3 of the 4 I talked about in the list I just went through. So yeah, most disappointing. Warrior of the Wind. For the reasons I said, I gave the first book 5 stars. And you know, when I give the first book in a series 5 stars, it's like, I hope that the second and the third book will also be 5 stars, but I don't necessarily expect that. Like, I don't go into a sequel, especially if it's a trilogy, like the second book, middle book. I kind of try to temper my expectations and like, you know, I hope it's at least 4 stars, right? Like, oh, that'd be really great. If it was like 3.75, 4 minimum, and 5 would be great. Happens occasionally. But like going from 5 to 2.5 was very disappointing. And then Faybound by Sada El Arifi, I didn't rate super low. What did I rate it? Let's check. Yeah, I gave Faybound 3.75, but simply because I love the Ending Fire trilogy by Sada El Arifi. And I mean, to be fair, the third book didn't quite stick the landing the way I would have liked, but I still enjoyed it. And I was so hyped for this too. Like this author who the 2 out of the 3 books in this other series are 5 stars for me, and like has the cool lore and history and like cool world building and all this shit. Like sign me up. This one's more romance heavy. It's like fantasy romance, but it's like fae shit and whatever, and an African culture inspiration and all this stuff. And then I read it and it was just, it kind of felt like a different author, which, you know, it's sort of a different genre, so kind of makes sense, but I just didn't love the romances. Like, they were kind of enjoyable, but also kind of not. And like, the same thing with the character development. I didn't hate it. There were some people that like really did not like this. Some people really loved it, and I just felt kind of in the middle with it, so just disappointing for that reason. Dragon Rider by Taryn Matheru was disappointing because like the synopsis, I was just very hopeful that it was gonna be like such a cool book and like one of my faves. I really wanted it to be. And I think it had gotten pushed back with publication too, so I had been waiting for it for a while. And then I read it and was like, oh, no thanks. And then The Bones Beneath My Skin. I guess I shouldn't have been so surprised, but I saw the average rating for it, and I was hoping it was going to be another House in the Cerulean Sea. I was like, okay, this is going to be it. This is going to be the other TJ Klune that feels like House in the Cerulean Sea to me. The synopsis sounds so cute and heartwarming. And then I gave it, what'd I give it, 2.25? I literally just talked about it and I forgot. Yeah, 2.25. Did not have a fun time. Heavily skimmed. Would not recommend, despite pretty much everybody else loving it. So yeah, those were the most disappointing. And now, just like I did for my top rated, I went into my like almost faves, the 4.5s. So I'm gonna run through, there's quite a few, so I probably won't talk about them quite as much. There's 15. I did this last year also. These are all of the 3 and 3.25 rating books. Very much like average plus, right? 3.25 for me is like average plus, and 3 is just middle of the road. So gonna go through those for anyone who is curious. And these are in no particular order. Since they're so like kind of middle of the road, like I was trying to for a second. I'm like, I can't really determine which ones I liked better than the others, I guess. Yeah, like I'm looking at them again and I still like can't really. There's one, no, not even that. Yeah, no, we're not going to. Okay, we're just gonna go through them. So the 3-star ones, we have Lore Olympus Volume 3 by Rachel Smythe. I have decided to DNF this series now because, and I unhauled them. I might someday pick up the rest of them as they like come out, but I don't know. I just don't think I will because I really like the concept of it and the artwork. It's graphic novels and like the artwork is so adorable, pretty, like well done. I really love the artwork. And yeah, it's, you know, Greek mythology. It's Hades and Persephone specifically, but we also see all the other gods and goddesses. And yeah, I like it, but it's just, I don't know. It started feeling very like, yeah, that's a thing I read. And then Macy Dobbs by Jacqueline Winspear. This is a historical detective thing, historical mystery that I wanted to try. And yeah, I just felt very about it. Into the Bright Open by Sherry Dimeline. This is a Secret Garden remix, reimagining. I fucking loved the Secret Garden movie when I was a kid, the one from the 90s. And the book, I like elements of the original book, but it's also very of its time and a little racist, very classist, and yeah, a little racist even when it seems to think it's being like progressive and open-minded. You're like, ooh, I don't know about that. The movie, I don't remember it having really any of that, but this book, it just didn't work for me. What? Excuse me for a sec. Boyfriend got me french fries. I was so hungry. Got some fucking seasoning all over these bitches. Look at that. Okay, back to Into the Bright Open. Oh, wait, let me take a drink. Yeah, this one was fine. I really like the author's authorial voice, the writing style and everything. But it was kind of bothering me that like we didn't actually even get that much of like the garden. And then the main characters also felt very watered down from the original, like the movie and everything. So it just was like, eh. Lost Ark Dreaming by C. Davies Okungbawa. This is a novella. It's like dystopian future Earth. And it just wasn't, it was not the right genre. It was one that I went into kind of being like, hopefully I like it. But it's not exactly the genre I usually like. And yeah, it just felt very meh for me. An Untimely Death by Blythe Baker. If I were to put these in order, Lore Olympus would probably be like at the bottom. And then probably this one after, because barely fucking remember this. It was some random, I don't know if it was Kindle Unlimited or what, but it's like a historical, kind of cozy historical mystery that I barely remember. It went in and out of my brain. The Company of the Wolf by David Ragg, another 3-star. This one, again, 3 stars. I didn't hate it. I just wasn't like super invested in it. I didn't get really gripped by the story. I really like the characters in this series. I read the first book and quite enjoyed it. And then this one I just was like, I'm probably not going to continue with the series just because it's middle of the road for me after that book. And then the last of the 3 stars, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. Novella, classic, horror, just kind of felt like there for me. And now into the 3.25s, we have The Truth of the Eleke by Moses Ose Utomi. This is another installment in this novella series, and I've enjoyed the series. None of them have been like 5 stars or anything. I really hope this author puts out a full-length novel someday, because I think it would be something I would probably really enjoy. I think their novellas tends to not be my jam. Diabolical Sword by Melissa Erin Jackson, 3.25. This is another one though that I'm like, I kind of don't remember it that much. It was cool conceptually. It's like an urban fantasy thing. I don't know. I liked it, but it was there. The Grim Grotto by Lemony Snicket. That's a reread, 3.25. Not one of my faves in the series, but they're cute. They're very formulaic, which is fine. They're for a younger audience. The Series of Unfortunate Events is what I'm talking about. Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. This one, I decided not to continue with the series because there were enough elements of it that I just didn't love. Initially, in the beginning, I was very hopeful. In the first part of the book, I was kind of like, this could be a new fave fantasy romance series. And then it just kind of got watered down. There was like an element, like kind of a character that gets introduced that really threw things for a loop for me personally. And some of the pacing stuff, and I don't know, it just ended up being kind of eh. The King of Crows by Libba Bray. This one was kind of disappointing too, if I had a larger most disappointing list. The third book too, though. This is the 4th book in the Diviner series, which is historical, horror, fantasy, young adult, mystery. I don't know. It's like a very wide mix, blend of genres. And yeah, it just kind of fell a little flat for me. The pacing, especially in this one, I just was like, no thank you. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I need to try audio for these types of classics in the future, I think, because I've said it, like I feel like maybe I would have rated this and maybe even Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde a little higher, perhaps. Reading it on the page, though, the difference in the language, right? It's English, but like, you know, it's fucking old English, classic English, and there's a barrier there for me. I'm not used to reading it. I don't read a lot of classics. I have read classics in the past when I was in school and stuff, but it's been a long time and it's just not something I kept up with, and it's not something I even then like read super frequently. And yeah, it's just something that it pulls me out of the story too much. So that's all that is. And then The Rainfall Market by Yu Yang Guang. This one I didn't realize was like young adult. Honestly, even felt a little middle grade to me. It's a Korean book that got translated. I think it originally was published in 2023, but the English translation I think is getting published, or either got published late 2024 or is getting published 2025. I don't remember. Let me check. Or maybe this version got published in 2023? I don't know. I had a NetGalley e-arc for it. Yeah, it's a Korean bestseller, and I for some reason thought it was adult. And actually, I changed the rating. I actually changed it to 3 stars, so this one would be lower. As a matter of fact, I guess maybe it was 2023. Why the fuck was it on NetGalley? Couldn't fucking tell you. At any rate, it had like Studio Ghibli vibes, I think. I've only watched one Studio Ghibli movie when I was a kid, but I'm familiar with the atmosphere of it all. And it kind of had that feeling. It's a little girl that has like this crap life, living in poverty, and her sister like ran away or some shit. Never really resolved. But she goes to this rainfall market. It's this magical place, and there's like trolls, or what are they called? They're like little troll people things, fantastical creatures though, that live there and work there, and it kind of it felt too repetitive. It just started to feel very, very samey. It was like 7 different like shops she went to, and like she'd go to the shop and talk to the shop owner and have to like do a little adventure or a little quest or a little challenge, and then she'd get the little magical orb, and then she would see what the future was, because she's like picking what new life she wants. And she'd like watch the little orb to see what the magical new life is and be like, no, I don't want that one. I want this one. And then go to the next shop. And it just felt very repetitive, basically. And the tone of it Like I said, I think it might be categorized as like young adult, but it felt like middle grade to me personally. So if you like that, might be more to your taste than it was for me. But for me, it was very like meh. And there we have it. Those are all the things that were on the lower end for me this year. There was no House of Sky and Breath style book this year, so that's great. Nothing that I felt the need to rant about for an hour or anything, so love that for me. I did DNF quite a bit this year also. I'll have the card up if I remember. For my DNF tier ranking, I had 34 books that I DNF'd this year, which is a lot, but you know, DNFing is self-care. That's how I see it. Let me know if you have read any of these and what your thoughts were. Do you agree with me? Or did you love something that I was like, eh? Or are any of them on your TBR? And of course, you can leave an emoji if you just want to say hi, make your presence known. As always, thank you so much for your time. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.